it's all well and good to talk about how difficult it is, but, I really want to help you move the needle here. I don't want you to get fed up and say, I'm going to go to Kijiji and I'm going to find a puppy there. That is the last thing I want you to do. Welcome to episode 3 of the Pawdoption Guide podcast. I'm your host, Bethany Muir, and this is your one-stop shop for the knowledge and advice you need to adopt and integrate the rescue dog of your dreams. So, oh my goodness, Hudson! Oh, he just dumped water all over. And I'm back. That was exciting. Water all over my desk. Of course, had to go right to the outlets on the wall. I hope to God my computer doesn't fry, but the show must go on. So here he comes again to wreck the day. Today we're talking about how to break down barriers, not glasses of water, to dog adoption. The adoption climate is so different from how it was 6 years ago when I adopted my last dog, Rory. Today, we can blame the pandemic for most of these changes, and it starts with the influx of people that wanted to become pet owners, specifically dog owners, although lots of people were getting different kinds of pets, pocket pets, cats, mainly dogs during the pandemic. And there's a stat out there that about 18% of pet owners today became pet owners during the pandemic. That is huge. So you can imagine the strain on vet clinics everywhere. That's where my mind goes because as an RVT, they're feeling the pain. So with that influx of people, there became a decrease in inventory. So there were less dogs to adopt, less choice. It made it harder to find a dog that was compatible with you because there was just so many people applying for dogs. And the accessibility of more dogs getting into rescues and shelters decreased because a lot of dogs in Canada come from the United States or from other countries, especially the Caribbean. So with no one traveling, especially outside the country, there was no way of bringing those animals into those shelters to be adopted out again. So that certainly made it hard to find a dog that was suitable for you, or even just a dog to apply for. And that increase in demand meant an increase in requirements from rescues and shelters, mainly because they needed some way to filter through hundreds of applicants for one dog. So the way they did that was tightening up their requirements, making sure it was just that much more specific for what they were looking for each dog. And that meant their applications became much longer. Their interview process was more arduous. They might have been looking at multiple people at once. They might have been looking at 3 or 5 applicants at a time based on what they'd filter through. And in the past, you might have only been first come, first serve. We'll go through this application, and if not you, then we'll look at the next. Whereas now it was just filter it down to a good few and then do the process with those few and then narrow it down to one at the end. So much more competition during the process for people. And then things like increased requirements other than, more specifics during applications and interviews were things like, okay, now you need to have pet insurance in order to adopt a dog from this rescue. Okay, now you need to ensure that you're taking this dog to a training class or an obedience class that is approved by us following their adoption, and we're going to make sure you follow through with that plan. So those were things that really had not been on the docket before and have made it much more difficult to get a pet. So all in all, there is a lot more barriers to adopting a dog. And this topic really gets me fired up because, let's talk accessibility here. pet adoption and dog adoption were meant to be accessible ways of getting pets and open to the public. You didn't have to have a lot of money in order to obtain a dog that was compatible with you. You didn't have to find some elite breeder and organize getting a puppy from one of their litters. So it was a much more common way for people to get a pet, and all these barriers, while they're trying to look out for the best interest of these animals, which is certainly priority, does push people in the opposite direction. So that is where my biggest frustration comes with all of the requirements and the hoops people have to jump through, is that it's pushing people toward supporting puppy mills because they go, I can't, I tried to apply for a few dogs. I got no responses. And so here I am searching on Kijiji because I really want a dog. And people can't be patient. I've really learned that I am quite patient about this process, but a lot of people just don't care that much about making sure they choose adoption. Their values regarding adoption versus a purebred dog or a backyard bred dog really can wane based on how badly they want that dog. So they might start out going, okay, I want to adopt a dog, but then by their second application that they haven't heard back from, they're like, oh well, that was a no-go. Well, or you're just going to go look on Kijiji. And of course, there's plenty of dogs on Kijiji. Well, of course there is. That is Puppy Mill Central. So do not go to Kijiji if you need a dog right away. Please, please look up a responsible breeder. Those will be people who don't have puppies ASAP for you to take. You go on a waiting list. You will be able to plan ahead when you will be able to get a puppy once you're on that waiting list, and a much more sensible way to do it. And people who have controlled litters and controlled amount of puppies, they're not mass producing puppies, are taking better care of those puppies, and they're breeding them responsibly so that they don't have hereditary diseases and they are vaccinated appropriately. Lots of puppy mill dogs are not vaccinated appropriately. We're finding that, there's veterinarians that are signing away their vaccine certificates when they haven't received appropriate vaccines at all. And that's not okay. That is the way that we spread things that we have been controlling for a long time, like distemper and parvovirus. Those things run rampant when puppies aren't vaccinated appropriately. And those will cost you dearly in your pocket as well as your heart when your puppy's health starts to fail. So do not go the route of Kijiji. Please, if you don't know how to get a puppy, then just head to my Instagram link in my bio. And if you scroll down, it'll talk about where you can source out a puppy appropriately and ways to make sure you're dealing with a responsible breeder and not a backyard breeder or a puppy mill. Okay, that is so important. So again, I just hate the fact that pet adoption has become less accessible. It has really sent people in the direction of supporting puppy mills, because the only way to get rid of puppy mills is really by not supporting them. The more demand a puppy mill has, the more that they're just going to keep on producing and keep their inhumane practices, and that is just not right. There is some hope in the fact that throughout this, I have found that shelters, SPCAs, humane societies, have done a good job at trying to keep their accessibility high. They are often taking more first come, first serve, and of course, still filtering through applicants. So, first come, first serve, they'll look at your application. But if you are not compatible or not an ideal candidate for this dog, they're not going to consider you. And that's exactly how it should be. But making it first come, first serve just does make it a bit more accessible for people. You just have to be quick enough, and that's something that You just need a little luck. You find the right one, you get your application in time, and it works out. So that makes it less of a, well, you have to have everything and anything. You have to have no kids and no other pets and have the perfect backyard and have all the time in the world to spend with this animal and make sure that you're going to get pet insurance and do training and all the things. Shelters are making sure that we are allowing the average person to get a dog because that is their right. Of course, we want responsible pet owners, but that does not mean that they have to be wealthy, and it does not mean that they have to be retired and all those things. That is starting to really cut out a lot of people. And even things like, can't be renting. Well, again, that's actually starting to discriminate against groups of people who can't afford to buy houses right now. The market's crazy. And that just seems unfair. So shelters are a great place to still find accessibility. So if you're having difficulty in ever getting any responses from rescues, then focus your search on shelters and the animals they have, because their applications often are simpler and they do often do first come, first serve. Shelters can be great in that regard. So there is that. Downside is we've noticed they have quite low inventory, and people are seeing the benefits to having a dog come from a foster situation rather than from a shelter or a kennel environment. You're already getting a sense of how they live in a home, and that is certainly ideal. But in this case, if you're really having difficulty, that would be my suggestion to you. How do we break down these barriers to dog adoption? It's all well and good to talk about how difficult it is, but, I really want to help you move the needle here. I don't want you to get fed up and say, I'm going to go to Kijiji and I'm going to find a puppy there. That is the last thing I want you to do. So let's get you educated on pet ownership so you know your stuff and you can impress rescues with your knowledge through your application and then further through your rescue interview, okay? Those are the ways to really get yourself in there and get seen and noticed so that you can sail through the rest of the process. And if you're struggling with this, you're going to want to get on my membership waitlist. I'm currently building a beautiful thing called the Pawdoption Guide Membership Experience, which is going to be my new way of helping people to adopt their dream rescue pet by giving them all the information they need regarding locating and applying for and doing rescue interviews and house tours to transitioning and integrating that pet into your home, because the work does not stop when you bring that pet home. So if you want to be a part of that and find out when it launches, then head on over to pawdoptionguide.com/membership waitlist to find out more. Another way to break down these barriers is by increasing your search radius. So I said that doesn't work so great with shelters, but with rescues, you can certainly search farther and wider in order to get more compatible dogs and find more adoptable dogs to pick from, because you certainly don't want to just limit yourself to the local shelter or that local rescue you know of. You'll be waiting forever in this adoption climate. You need to look at Pet Finder and be willing to drive a few hours, even to do a meet and greet. And maybe you'll have to do it more than once, but it is so worth it to find a more compatible dog. Tip number 3, look in shelters when possible. Because of increased accessibility, the applications being easier, the first come, first serve really means, sometimes it's up to luck. So that's a great option. And then be prepared. You can blow rescues away with, having done your research. So things like knowing a vet and having them on hand for the moment you get that dog, knowing a trainer that uses positive reinforcement techniques that the rescue will approve of, having that ready, financial plans, having either chosen pet insurance or saying, no, actually, I've been saving up for a dog and I have a savings account. That is fantastic. Or knowing that you've budgeted a dog into your monthly expenses is another thing. And that's a way that you're going to show them, I'm ready for pet ownership. Sign me up. And lastly, this cannot be overstated. Persistence. Don't expect things to happen overnight. It does take time, just as it takes time to get yourself on a wait list for a responsible dog breeder. And do your research on whether that breeder is up to snuff. It takes time to find a compatible dog that you're going to be able to get the application in for and get through to the rescue with. So, yeah, these tips may not always mean that you get to the front of the line every time, but all it takes is to get to the front of the line once, okay? So keep looking. I would search every other day during the pandemic for some clients, and there were still dogs coming up, and it was so key to see them right away because they were getting taken down as quick as they got too many applications. So it really is a speed thing. And yeah, it's okay if you don't have all day to be looking at whatever dog came up. But if you even just plan to do it once every evening or every other day or every third day, that's enough. Just be consistent, and that persistence will pay off. And you will certainly find a compatible dog in time that you can make it through that process with. Put your hand up if this is you right now. I'm sick of filling out adoption applications and never hearing back. Am I always being filtered out? Filling out rescue applications is so tedious and time-consuming. I've never owned a dog before, so I'm not sure how to answer a lot of these adoption application questions. I wanted to do the right thing and adopt, but I filled out countless applications and I'm ready to give up. I want you to know that this doesn't have to be so frustrating. With the Dog Adoption Application Survival Kit, you will learn to nail down the strategies that matter, take the guesswork out of applications, and stand out. It's as simple as reading the PDFs, watching the videos when it works for you, and implementing the methods, language, and tools that I personally use with clients for securing them a compatible rescue dog. Head on over to pawdoptionguide.com/application survival kit to get yours today. So to summarize, the way to break down dog adoption barriers is 1. Get educated. 2. Increase your search radius and frequency. 3. Look in shelters whenever possible. 4. Be prepared. 5. Persistence. Persistence, persistence, persistence. The calm after the storm is coming. The pandemic puppy craze is waning. As we start to see a light at the end of this tunnel, it will decrease the amount of applicants, thus the competition, as well as increase the inventory, especially as travel becomes easier, which we're starting to see a lot of people traveling. So there are still so many great dogs that are out there waiting for their forever home. It's just about the right timing and the right amount of persistence. I hope you found today's episode insightful and that you'll tune into the next one. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to give it a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Or even better, tell a friend who loves rescue dogs about this podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd love to learn more about me or tell me about how frustrating the adoption process is right now, just head on over to my Instagram where I'm most active or my Facebook page at Pawdoption Guide. Thanks for joining me today, and I can't wait to be with you here again next week when hopefully my couch and desk and outlets have dried.